Night came slowly over the small rural town of Hopkinsville, Kentucky, spreading a deep blue darkness across the quiet farms and rolling fields. Crickets were the only sound at first, singing in the tall grass, and fireflies blinked like tiny floating stars. Everything felt peaceful, like any other summer evening. But something strange was moving in the sky above. Something silent and bright. Something no one expected. It was Sunday, August 21st, 1955, when the world of one family changed forever. The Sutton farmhouse sat at the edge of the woods, old wooden boards creaking softly as warm wind pushed against the walls. Inside the house, laughter filled the rooms. The Sutton family and their friends were gathered after a long day. They played cards, told jokes, and enjoyed the calm night. No one had any idea that something was watching them, something not human. At 7 p.m., Billy Ray Taylor, a young man visiting the Suttons, stepped outside to fetch water from the well. The sun had just set, and the sky was growing dark. Billy paused for a moment, breathing in the warm summer air. Then he saw it. A bright silver object moved across the sky, glowing like polished steel under moonlight. It moved fast, too fast for a plane, and it made no sound at all. Billy watched with wide eyes as the object slowed suddenly, stopped in the air, and then dropped straight down into the woods beyond the house. There was no explosion, no smoke, nothing, just silence, deep and heavy. Billy ran back into the house, breathless, shouting that he had seen a flying saucer land near the woods. Everyone laughed at first. They told him he must be joking, or that his imagination was running wild. But Billy's face was pale, and his hands shook as he spoke. He swore he was telling the truth. He swore he saw something real. The others grew quiet. Then the dogs began barking outside, loud and frantic, growling in a way no one had heard before. Chairs scraped, and the family rushed to the windows, peering into the darkness. But they saw nothing, only fields and shadows. A few minutes passed, heavy with silence. Then something moved. From the edge of the woods, a small figure slowly stepped into the moonlight. It was no taller than 3 feet. Its skin was smooth and shiny, glowing faint silver like metal. Its head was round and large, almost too big for its body, and its eyes were bright and round like glowing white marbles. Its arms were long, hanging almost to the ground, with thin fingers that opened and closed slowly, like claws searching for something. The creature walked toward the house, slow and calm, as if unafraid. It tilted its head to one side, watching the humans inside with wide, glowing eyes. No one moved. No one breathed. Fear stuck to their throats like ice. Then another figure stepped out of the trees, and then another. 3 small creatures stood in the field, staring at the house in complete silence. Panic exploded inside the room. Elmer Sutton grabbed his shotgun. Billy grabbed a rifle. The family shouted for the children to hide. Someone cried. Someone prayed. Everyone was shaking. They had no idea what those things were, but they knew they were in danger. The window shook as something tapped against the glass low, gentle, like long fingers knocking dot. Elmer fired first. The gunshot blasted through the night. The creature fell backward, rolling across the ground. But instead of bleeding or crying, it bounced back up, floating lightly, as if weightless. Then it ran toward the side of the house, moving fast and silent. The family screamed. Another creature climbed onto the roof with no sound at all, crawling like a spider, its glowing eyes staring down through the thin wooden boards. Billy fired again. Sparks flew as the bullet hit metal, like shooting a steel plate. The creature flipped into the air, floating down like a feather, landing on its feet untouched. The creatures were not afraid. They were studying, watching, testing, and the Sutton family realized something terrifying. These visitors were not here by accident. They were here with purpose, and they were not leaving. The battle had only just begun. On the night after the terrifying visit, the Sutton family barely slept. Every creak of the old house made their hearts race, and every shadow seemed alive with unseen eyes. Dawn came slowly, pale and cold, revealing a world that looked peaceful but felt anything but safe. Elmer Sutton, the family patriarch, gathered his friends and neighbors in the small living room. His voice was low and serious as he told them about the strange creatures that had attacked their home just hours before. The room was heavy with disbelief and fear. Some called Elmer crazy. Others thought he was telling a wild tale. But a few, like Sheriff Chester Ramsey, listened carefully, their faces pale and minds racing. Rumors of strange lights and odd noises had already spread through Hopkinsville, and people began locking their doors tightly at night. The next evening, the Suttons were ready. They armed themselves with shotguns, rifles, and lanterns, determined to face whatever lurked in the darkness. As twilight fell, the family and their neighbors spread out around the farm, watching the tree line nervously. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught their eyes. Silver shape glided silently between the branches. Then, from the shadows, more figures appeared, small and fast, moving like shadows with glowing eyes that pierced the night. The creatures moved with unnatural grace, climbing walls and disappearing into the darkness, only to reappear behind them. Shots rang out, echoing through the hills, but bullets seemed to bounce harmlessly off their smooth skin. Panic mixed with determination as the group realized these beings were not from this world, their powers beyond anything the humans could understand. The night stretched long, filled with eerie sounds, whispered prayers, and desperate attempts to drive the creatures away. In the chaos, a young girl named Mary saw one of the creatures touch her dog, who immediately froze, staring blankly into space. The dog did not move, did not bark, trapped in a silent terror. This moment deepened the fear among the townsfolk. They felt powerless against beings who could control minds or paralyze bodies. As dawn finally broke, the creatures vanished as mysteriously as they had come, leaving behind terrified witnesses and unanswered questions. Over the next days, Hopkinsville was gripped by fear and curiosity. Newspapers called it the Goblin Attack, and reporters descended on the town, eager to uncover the truth. Yet, many locals refused to speak, afraid that telling their story might bring the creatures back. The Sutton family remained at the center of the mystery, haunted by what they had seen and wondering if the visitors would return. Strange marks were found on trees, strange sounds echoed at night, and strange lights were spotted high above the fields. Was this the beginning of something much larger? Were the creatures scouts, explorers, or something far more dangerous? The answers were lost in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. For now, the town held its breath, knowing that the peaceful countryside might never be the same again. The night grew colder, and the tension in Hopkinsville thickened like fog as more strange events unfolded. After the terrifying encounter at the Sutton farm, the entire town was on edge, unable to forget the glowing eyes that had stared into their souls, or the eerie silence that had swallowed the countryside. Rumors spread quickly about strange shapes moving through the trees, unexplainable lights flashing in the sky, and mysterious noises echoing through empty fields. Some townsfolk reported hearing faint tapping on their windows late at night, or seeing shadows that moved against the wind. The local sheriff, Chester Ramsey, faced growing pressure to find answers. But even his experienced officers were baffled by the unexplained. The Sutton family, still shaken, found themselves at the center of attention and fear. Neighbors who had once been friendly now kept their distance, whispering about curses and otherworldly visitors. Elmer Sutton, despite his fear, insisted on protecting his family and the town. He organized nightly watches with friends, armed and ready to confront whatever came. One evening, a young man named Jimmy Davis spotted a silver figure near the edge of the woods. He fired his rifle, but the creature simply vanished into thin air as if it had melted away. The sightings grew more frequent, and so did the fear. Children refused to play outside after dark, and adults kept their lights off, hoping to avoid attracting attention. The creatures seemed to learn quickly, avoiding gunfire and moving with impossible speed and silence. A local preacher held prayer meetings to protect the town, warning that these beings were unholy and evil. Yet no one knew where they had come from or what they wanted. Some believed the creatures were aliens, visitors from another world studying humans like lab rats. Others whispered of demons or ancient spirits awakened by some forgotten sin. The truth remained hidden beneath layers of fear and confusion. Then, one night, the creatures changed their behavior. They stopped attacking and instead appeared to be watching, observing from the shadows with glowing eyes that pierced the darkness. Some townspeople reported feeling a cold presence, as if the creatures could reach into their minds and know their deepest fears. A few brave souls tried to follow the creatures into the woods, but none returned, swallowed by the darkness without a trace. Hopkinsville became a place of nightmares, trapped between the ordinary world and something far darker. The Sutton family, burdened by the knowledge of what lurked nearby, prepared for the worst. The visitors were no longer just strange creatures. They were a warning, a message from beyond. The town's fate hung in the balance, waiting for the next chapter in a story that had only just begun. The days after the terrifying encounters stretched into uneasy weeks, yet the unsettling presence of the strange creatures never faded from Hopkinsville's minds. The Sutton family, once ordinary farmers, now lived under a cloud of fear and suspicion, their peaceful life shattered by the visitors from the dark woods. As August turned to September, the town itself seemed to hold its breath, caught between disbelief and dread. Elmer Sutton spent his days repairing broken fences and checking on his livestock. But his nights were restless, haunted by memories of glowing eyes and silent footsteps. The neighbors whispered in hushed tones about strange lights hovering over the fields and odd noises echoing in the distance. Sheriff Chester Ramsey tried to keep order, organizing patrols and asking for reports. But even the lawman felt powerless against a threat that seemed to defy explanation. One afternoon, a local school teacher named Mary Helen Harrison reported seeing a small silver figure near the schoolyard, its bright eyes watching her from behind a tree. She described a sense of cold and weightlessness, as if the creature was not fully part of this world. The incident spread fear through the community, leading parents to keep their children indoors and close the schools early. Meanwhile, Elmer and his family took extra precautions, boarding windows and securing doors with heavy locks. They also began keeping a detailed log of each sighting, hoping to find a pattern or clue that might explain the creature's behavior. Late one night, a sudden scream shattered the silence. Neighbors rushed to the source, finding a man named Frank Taylor trembling and pointing toward the woods. He claimed the creatures had surrounded him, whispering in voices that sounded like the wind but carried meaning he could not understand. Frank's eyes were wild with terror, and he refused to speak further, locking himself away in his home. The town's fear deepened, but so did their curiosity. Some began setting traps and cameras, hoping to capture proof of the visitor's existence. Others turned to old legends and folklore, searching for answers in stories of spirits and demons that once haunted the land. The tension grew unbearable, and Hopkinsville seemed trapped in a nightmare from which it could not wake. Yet, in the darkness, a strange feeling began to spread among some of the townsfolk, a mixture of fascination and dread. They wondered if these creatures were not just threats, but messengers or warnings of something larger, something humanity was not meant to face. As the nights grew longer and colder, the question remained: why had the Kentucky Goblins returned? What did they want with this quiet town, and how far would they go to get it? The answers were lost in the shadows, waiting for those brave enough to seek the truth. The quiet fear that gripped Hopkinsville only grew stronger as days passed, turning the once friendly town into a place of whispered rumors and watchful eyes. The Sutton family tried to keep calm, but every rustle in the trees and every strange light in the sky reminded them that the creatures were still out there, watching, waiting. Elmer Sutton spent long hours speaking with neighbors, trying to understand what had drawn the visitors back after all these years. Some thought the answer lay in the land itself, that the woods hid secrets no one could explain. Others believed the goblins were searching for something hidden beneath the fields, buried deep and forgotten. The townspeople divided between fear and fascination, some hoping for answers, while others prayed for safety. Sheriff Ramsey organized nightly patrols, but the creatures seemed to slip away before anyone could catch a clear glimpse. One cold evening, a local farmer named Tom Jenkins reported a strange symbol carved into one of his barn doors, a circle with lines radiating outward like a sun, glowing faintly under the moonlight. No one recognized the mark, but it matched descriptions from other strange events reported over the years in nearby towns. Some thought it was a warning. Others feared it was a sign of something worse to come. The Sutton family kept careful watch, setting traps and shining bright lights into the woods, hoping to catch the creatures or scare them away. But every attempt failed. The goblins moved like shadows, silent and quick, never leaving a trace. One night, Elmer heard a soft tapping on his window. He looked outside and saw a small figure crouched just beyond the glass, its glowing eyes fixed on him with an unreadable expression. He wanted to run, but something held him there, an icy fear mixed with curiosity. The creature reached out, a slender hand touching the glass lightly. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, it vanished into the darkness. This moment haunted Elmer, leaving him with questions he couldn't answer. Were the creatures hostile? Or were they trying to communicate? The townspeople wrestled with the same questions, torn between fighting the unknown and understanding it. As the days wore on, more sightings came from all corners of Hopkinsville. Lights floated silently over the fields, strange noises echoed at night, and the feeling of being watched became impossible to ignore. Some townsfolk began reporting strange dreams, visions of the silver creatures, of distant stars, and cold, empty places. These dreams left them restless and afraid, as if the visitors were reaching beyond the physical world into their minds. The tension in the town grew unbearable, dividing families and friendships. Some believed the goblins were evil forces to be destroyed, while others thought they were misunderstood beings caught in a struggle beyond human knowledge. Yet no one could deny that the presence of these visitors changed everything. Hopkinsville was no longer just a quiet town. It was a battleground between the known and the unknown, the natural and the supernatural. And as the shadows deepened and the nights grew colder, the question remained: what was the true purpose of the Kentucky Goblins? Were they explorers, invaders, or something else entirely? The answer lay hidden in the darkness, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to face the truth. As the chilling nights stretched on in Hopkinsville, the line between reality and nightmare blurred for the townsfolk. The mysterious visitors, known as the Kentucky Goblins, had woven themselves into the fabric of the community's collective fear. Families stayed indoors after sunset, windows shuttered and doors bolted tight, while shadows lengthened beyond the edges of their vision. Elmer Sutton, burdened by the weight of responsibility, grew more restless by the day. He pored over his notes and those collected from neighbors, searching for any clue to the creature's purpose. One evening, he gathered a small group of trusted men to explore the dense woods near the farm. Armed with flashlights and rifles, they moved cautiously under the canopy of ancient trees, the crunch of dry leaves echoing unnervingly loud in the silence. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared ahead, a cluster of shimmering lights hovering over a clearing. Approaching slowly, the men saw strange symbols etched into the bark of the trees, faintly glowing with an otherworldly light. The air was thick with cold, unnatural and biting, pressing on their lungs. Then, from the shadows, the creatures emerge, not attacking, but watching silently with their luminous eyes. Elmer's heart pounded, but he held his ground, feeling a mixture of fear and strange fascination. One of the creatures stepped forward, its gaze intense and unblinking. For a moment, time seemed to freeze, as if the two worlds collided in that small clearing. Then, a sudden gust of wind swept through the trees, scattering leaves and mist, and the goblins vanished as quietly as they had appeared. The men returned to the town shaken but alive, sharing their story, which only deepened the mystery. Meanwhile, strange occurrences plagued Hopkinsville. Cattle found dead with no wounds, tools misplaced, and unexplained power outages disrupting daily life. The community's anxiety turned to desperation, and some turned to local legends for answers. Old tales spoke of ancient spirits protecting the land, angered by the disturbance of sacred grounds. Others believed the creatures were harbingers of a coming darkness, warnings from beyond the stars. Amidst the growing chaos, Elmer and his family struggled to maintain hope. They fortified their home, installed new locks, and kept watch every night, their eyes searching the dark horizon for any sign of the visitors. The question that haunted them all was this: what did the Kentucky Goblins want? Were they here to warn, to harm, or something else entirely? With no answers and danger looming, the town braced for what might come next, caught between the known and the unknowable, the familiar and the alien. The story was far from over. The events in Hopkinsville had become the subject of hushed conversations and fearful glances. But for the Sutton family, life was unraveling under the weight of the unknown. With every passing day, the visitor's presence seemed to grow stronger and more mysterious. Elmer Sutton found himself trapped in a cycle of exhaustion and anxiety, his mind restless and searching for answers that refused to come. One morning, while inspecting the edge of their property, Elmer discovered strange footprints imprinted in the soft soil, small, elongated shapes with 3 toes, unlike anything he had ever seen. The prints led deep into the woods and disappeared suddenly, leaving only questions behind. Meanwhile, local children whispered of seeing strange lights darting between the trees at dusk, and several adults reported waking with unexplained scratches on their skin. Fear had become a constant companion, blending into the fabric of everyday life. Sheriff Ramsey, despite his skepticism, began to wonder if there was more to the stories than he initially believed. He arranged meetings with other law enforcement officials and even contacted investigators from the state capitol, seeking help for a mystery that was rapidly spiraling out of control. The town's isolation made it difficult for outsiders to take the events seriously, but Hopkinsville was not willing to suffer in silence. Late one evening, a heavy fog rolled over the farmland, cloaking the landscape in a thick, wet veil. As Elmer prepared for another restless night, a soft humming sound filled the air, unlike anything he had heard before, low, vibrating, and almost hypnotic. He stepped outside and saw, hovering silently above the treetops, a series of bright lights arranged in a perfect triangle. The lights pulsed rhythmically, bathing the fields below in a cold, eerie glow. Elmer stood frozen, caught between fear and awe. For minutes, the lights remained suspended, then abruptly vanished, leaving nothing but darkness and silence. Word of the sightings spread quickly, feeding the growing legend of the Kentucky Goblins and their otherworldly technology. The community was left grappling with the terrifying possibility that these were not mere creatures of flesh and bone, but something far more advanced and unknowable. Meanwhile, the Sutton family strengthened their bonds, finding comfort in shared courage as they faced the unknown together. They knew that the visitors were still out there, watching and waiting, and they feared that whatever came next could change their lives forever. As the shadows lengthened and the nights grew colder, Hopkinsville braced itself for the next chapter in a story that had only just begun, a story of visitors, mysteries, and the dark secrets. The strange lights that appeared over Hopkinsville that foggy night left the town unsettled and searching for answers, but none came easily. Elmer Sutton and his family remained vigilant, their eyes always scanning the dark woods for any sign of the visitors. The local farmers whispered of livestock disappearing without a trace and odd noises that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. Elmer's wife, Mary, noticed their youngest child waking from nightmares, trembling and speaking of creatures with glowing eyes standing at the foot of his bed. The entire community felt the weight of a presence they could neither see clearly nor understand. Sheriff Chester Ramsey, increasingly convinced that something beyond their knowledge was unfolding, worked late nights interviewing witnesses and gathering reports. Many townsfolk began documenting strange occurrences in journals, hoping to make sense of the incomprehensible. One night, a group of brave young men decided to follow mysterious, glowing footprints they discovered near the wood's edge. These prints were unlike anything normal, small, metallic-looking, and glowing faintly under the moonlight. The men trekked deep into the forest, moving cautiously between twisted trees and thick underbrush. Suddenly, they came upon a clearing illuminated by an eerie, unnatural light. Hovering above the ground was a sleek, metallic object, shaped like a disc and humming with low energy. The air around it crackled with electricity, and strange symbols glowed softly on its surface. Before the men could react, the object's lights brightened intensely, forcing them to shield their eyes. When they looked back, both the craft and the glowing footprints had vanished, leaving no sign they were ever there. Terrified and confused, they hurried back to town, breathless and shaken. The Sutton family found themselves more isolated than ever, their neighbors fearful and distant. Some believed the creatures were a warning. Others thought they were the heralds of disaster. Old Mrs. Jenkins, a local historian, shared tales of ancient guardians said to protect sacred lands, reminding everyone that the woods held secrets deeper than anyone realized. The tension in Hopkinsville reached a breaking point when several homes reported windows smashed during the night and strange scratches etched into walls. People spoke in hushed tones of being watched, followed, and touched by invisible hands. Despite their fear, the Suttons refused to give in. They continued their nightly vigils, praying for protection and clarity. The question that lingered over every conversation was the same. What did the Kentucky Goblins truly want? Were they visitors seeking help, explorers lost in our world, or harbingers of something darker? The answers remained hidden, locked away in the shadows that stretched across the hills and valleys. And as the nights grew colder and longer, Hopkinsville waited, holding its breath for whatever came next. The days following the sighting of the metallic craft in the forest did little to calm the restless town of Hopkinsville. The Sutton family, caught in the center of the mystery, felt the weight of each passing moment as fear and uncertainty settled deeper into their lives. Strange occurrences grew more frequent, flickering lights in windows when no one was home, unexplainable footsteps on the porch, and distant sounds that no one could trace. The community's nerves were frayed, and trust among neighbors began to crack under the strain. Sheriff Ramsey increased patrols, but even his officers hesitated at the edges of the woods, reluctant to venture too far into the unknown. Late one night, Elmer Sutton received a desperate call from a neighbor. Mrs. Harper, who claimed her barn had been ransacked and strange, glowing symbols marked the wooden beams inside. When Elmer arrived, the eerie markings glowed faintly, as if alive, casting strange shadows on the walls. He felt a chill run through his spine. That same night, Elmer's youngest son, Tommy, awoke screaming, claiming the creatures had visited him in his dreams, their eyes glowing brighter than ever. The Suttons tried to maintain their courage, but the strain was visible in their tired eyes and shaky hands. Meanwhile, the townspeople continued to gather in small groups, sharing whispered stories of unexplainable happenings. Cattle found mysteriously dead without wounds, tools moved or missing, and neighbors hearing strange tapping on their doors late at night. Some believed the visitors were experimenting, testing their limits, or sending messages they couldn't yet understand. Others feared an impending invasion, or worse. The local preacher organized nightly prayers, asking for protection against what many called evil spirits. But faith only offered faint comfort against the cold reality pressing in from the dark woods. As the tension mounted, the Sutton family decided to take a bold step. They reached out to a local professor specializing in folklore and unexplained phenomena, hoping to find knowledge or protection in ancient stories. The professor listened intently and shared legends of beings from other worlds, warnings of visitors who might come as friends or foes. He spoke of the thin line between science and myth, and the danger of underestimating what we cannot see. Armed with this knowledge, the Suttons prepared themselves for whatever might come next. But no one could predict the full extent of the mystery unfolding beneath the Kentucky moon. The visitors had returned, and Hopkinsville's peaceful nights were forever changed. The question now was not if they would come again, but what they would do when they did. As the days grew shorter and the cool breath of autumn began to settle over Hopkinsville, a deep unease took hold of the town. The Sutton family, still struggling with the haunting presence of the Kentucky Goblins, found themselves caught in a web of mystery that only grew thicker with each passing night. Elmer Sutton's mind was restless, weighed down by memories of glowing eyes and silent footsteps that echoed in the darkest corners of his thoughts. One afternoon, while walking near the edge of the woods, Elmer discovered a strange metal device, half buried beneath a layer of fallen leaves. It was small, no larger than a man's fist, covered in unknown symbols, and smooth to the touch, unlike anything he had seen before. He showed the device to Sheriff Chester Ramsey, who shared it with state officials, but no one could identify its origin or purpose. Meanwhile, the town was gripped by more sighting strange lights flickering high above the fields, unexplainable noises echoing in the distance, and shadows moving just beyond the reach of the street lamps. The tension grew palpable, leaving Hopkinsville divided between those who believed the visitors were malevolent forces and those who thought they might be lost travelers seeking help. At night, the Sutton family held quiet meetings, sharing stories and planning their next steps. Mary Sutton, Elmer's wife, insisted they prepare for the worst but hoped for peace. Children refused to sleep without their parents nearby, haunted by nightmares of silver creatures with eyes that never blinked. The local preacher called for prayers, warning that the town faced a spiritual battle beyond human understanding. Then came the reports from neighbors of missing livestock, strange markings on fences, and eerie silence where animals once roamed freely. A young boy named Jimmy Davis claimed he saw a creature step from the shadows, reaching out to touch his hand before vanishing into thin air. The story spread like wildfire, rekindling both fear and curiosity. Some townsfolk began carrying charms and talismans, hoping to ward off the unknown. Others set up cameras and traps, desperate for proof or protection. Yet the creatures seemed always one step ahead, appearing and disappearing like ghosts in the mist. The question haunted everyone. What was the true purpose of the Kentucky Goblins? Were they scouts for a larger force, lost travelers from distant stars, or something beyond human comprehension? As autumn deepened and the nights grew colder, Hopkinsville braced itself for answers, or for the darkness that might come if none were found. As the cold grip of autumn tightened around Hopkinsville, the town seemed to shrink beneath the weight of fear and unanswered questions. The Sutton family, once hopeful for peace, now faced nights filled with restless silence and a growing sense of dread. The strange metal device found by Elmer continued to baffle experts, who could neither explain its origin nor its purpose, adding layers to the mystery. Reports from the town multiplied strange lights flickering above the treetops, eerie whispers drifting through the wind, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Children spoke in hushed tones of shadowy figures lurking just beyond the safety of their homes, and parents struggled to shield them from the growing terror. Sheriff Chester Ramsey remained vigilant, organizing patrols to monitor the woods, but each expedition returned with nothing more than chilling silence and the unsettling sense of being followed. One evening, as a heavy fog rolled in from the hills, Elmer and a small group of townsfolk ventured deeper into the forest, determined to uncover the truth. The air grew thick with cold, and strange symbols carved into the bark of ancient trees glowed faintly under the pale moonlight. Suddenly, a soft humming filled the clearing, and from the shadows emerged the silver goblins, their glowing eyes fixed on the group. But this time, they did not attack. Instead, the creatures appeared almost curious, watching silently as the humans held their ground. Elmer felt an inexplicable connection, as if the beings were communicating through the eerie silence. Then, a sudden flash of light blinded everyone, and when vision returned, the goblins had vanished, leaving only the whispering wind and the heavy fog behind. The encounter left the group shaken, but with more questions than answers. The townsfolk debated endlessly. Were the goblins hostile invaders or misunderstood visitors? Were they here to warn, to protect, or to claim? Meanwhile, strange phenomena continued. Livestock found strangely unharmed, but missing. Tools left abandoned in the fields, and unexplained power outages plunging homes into darkness. The preacher's warnings grew more urgent, declaring that Hopkinsville was on the brink of a spiritual battle. The Sutton family struggled to maintain hope amid the growing chaos, holding on to each other as the line between reality and nightmare blurred. The visitors remained an enigma, neither friend nor foe, but a reminder of humanity's fragile place in a vast and mysterious universe. As the nights grew longer and colder, Hopkinsville prepared itself for the next chapter in a story that would forever change the way they saw the world. The chill of late autumn settled over Hopkinsville like a thick, suffocating blanket, wrapping the town in silence, broken only by whispers of fear and the crackling of burning wood. The Sutton family faced the creeping dread with a mixture of courage and exhaustion, their lives forever changed by the unrelenting presence of the Kentucky Goblins. Strange events continued to unravel around them. Livestock found mysteriously drained of life, yet untouched, tools and supplies inexplicably misplaced, and the persistent feeling of unseen eyes watching from the shadows. Elmer Sutton, despite his growing weariness, refused to surrender to despair. He kept detailed records of every incident, every sighting, hoping to find a pattern that might unlock the secrets haunting his family and town. One night, as he patrolled the edge of the woods with a small group of neighbors, a sudden rustling caught their attention. From the darkness emerged a figure, unlike the small goblins they had come to fear, but taller, more humanoid, yet still unmistakably otherworldly. Its skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight, eyes glowing with a piercing intensity that seemed to look beyond their physical forms and into their very souls. The visitors had changed, evolving or perhaps revealing their true nature. The group froze, breaths caught in their throats, as the being stepped forward slowly, its presence commanding yet strangely peaceful. Elmer felt a wave of calm wash over him, mingled with an unsettling sense of urgency. The creature raised a slender hand, pointing toward the horizon, where dark clouds gathered ominously. Without words, it seemed to convey a warning. Something was coming. Something that threatened not just Hopkinsville, but far beyond. Then, as silently as it had appeared, the figure retreated into the shadows, disappearing among the ancient trees. The encounter left the group shaken but determined. The Sutton family knew their struggle was far from over. The creatures were no longer mere visitors. They were messengers, bearers of a secret that could change everything. As the nights grew colder and the wind howled through the empty fields, Hopkinsville braced itself for what lay ahead. The town stood on the brink of a revelation or a disaster, caught between the familiar world they knew and the dark mysteries lurking just beyond the edge of understanding. And in the quiet moments before dawn, when the sky was painted with pale light and shadows danced with the morning mist, the question remained: what did the Kentucky Goblins truly want? And what price would the town pay to uncover the truth? As winter crept slowly over Hopkinsville, blanketing the land with frost and snow, a heavy silence settled on the town, broken only by the occasional crunch of footsteps in the frozen fields. The Sutton family, hardened by months of fear and uncertainty, prepared for the long nights ahead, knowing the visitors might return at any moment. The strange metal device Elmer had found weeks before remained a mystery, its smooth surface etched with symbols that glowed faintly in the dark. The device seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, almost alive, and the family guarded it closely, hoping it might hold answers to the goblins' true nature. The town itself was gripped by unease. Livestock continued to disappear. Homes were found with strange markings on doors and windows, and unexplainable lights flickered in the sky, painting ghostly patterns above the trees. Some neighbors refused to leave their homes after dark, while others took up arms, patrolling the empty streets in desperate attempts to protect what little normalcy remained. Sheriff Chester Ramsey coordinated nightly watches, but even his deputies whispered of strange sounds in the woods below, humming noises that seemed to vibrate through the earth itself. One bitterly cold night, as snow fell thick and heavy, Elmer received an unexpected visitor. A stranger, cloaked and hooded, appeared at the edge of the farm, carrying a small lantern that casts trembling shadows on the snow. The stranger spoke in a quiet voice, warning Elmer that the goblins were not merely visitors, but guardians of a secret buried deep beneath the land. They had come to warn the town of a danger far greater than anyone had imagined. The stranger's eyes, cold and piercing, held a mixture of knowledge and sorrow, as if carrying the weight of countless forgotten stories. Elmer listened carefully, realizing that the battle he and his family faced was just the beginning of a larger conflict, a clash between forces beyond human understanding, stretching far beyond the Kentucky woods. The visitor vanished as silently as he had come, leaving Elmer with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, strange phenomena escalated. Lights danced across the sky in unnatural patterns, crops withered overnight, and whispers filled the wind, speaking of ancient powers awakening from a long slumber. The townspeople grew restless, torn between fear and curiosity, unsure if they should fight, flee, or seek understanding. The Sutton family, bound together by love and courage, steeled themselves for whatever lay ahead. As the cold winter nights deepened and the shadows lengthened, Hopkinsville waited, caught between the past and the future, the known and the unknown, holding on to hope that they might survive the coming storm. The biting cold of winter wrapped Hopkinsville in a silent shroud. But beneath the frozen ground, the town's fears and mysteries only deepened. After the cloaked stranger's warning, Elmer Sutton and his family were more vigilant than ever, watching the woods with eyes sharpened by months of terror and uncertainty. The glowing metal device they guarded seemed to hum softly in the dark, a mysterious beacon that pulled at their minds with promises of hidden truths. Word spread quickly of strange happenings, eerie lights flickering in the skies, livestock vanishing without a trace, and unsettling sounds echoing through the frozen trees. The townspeople, divided between panic and determination, fortified their homes and armed themselves, desperate to protect what little remained of their peaceful lives. Sheriff Chester Ramsey worked tirelessly, organizing patrols and encouraging neighbors to report any unusual activity. Despite the growing fear, some of the townsfolk found solace in gathering around fires, sharing stories of old legends and forgotten folklore that hinted at visitors from other worlds or realms. Elmer's youngest son, Tommy, began drawing strange symbols he'd seen in dream circles and lines that matched those on the mysterious device. His innocent sketches added another layer of mystery, hinting at a connection beyond the physical world. One night, a blinding flash lit the skies above the forest, and a low hum vibrated through the ground. The townsfolk rushed outside, their breath forming clouds in the freezing air as they witnessed a triangular formation of lights slowly descending toward the woods. The sight was both terrifying and mesmerizing, confirming fears that the Kentucky Goblins were not mere legends, but something far more real and powerful. Elmer and a small group of brave neighbors decided to follow the lights, venturing deep into the snow-covered forest. As they moved cautiously through the trees, strange whispers seemed to fill the air, words they couldn't understand but felt deep within their souls. Suddenly, the glowing creatures appeared, surrounding them silently yet without hostility. Their eyes glowed brighter than ever, and the device in Elmer's pocket pulsed in response, as if recognizing its makers. In that chilling moment, Elmer realized the goblins were not just visitors or threats, they were guardians, protectors of a secret buried beneath the frozen earth. warning of dangers that stretched far beyond Hopkinsville. The family's fight was far from over, but now it carried the weight of destiny. The cold night closed in, and Hopkinsville waited for the next move in a story written in shadows, light, and fear. The deep winter nights in Hopkinsville grew darker and colder, but the fires of determination burned brightly within the Sutton family and their neighbors. The warning from the cloaked stranger and the chilling encounter in the snowy woods had set in motion a series of events none could have anticipated. Elmer Sutton, clutching the strange, glowing device that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat, felt the weight of an ancient secret resting heavily on his shoulders. The town was no longer just a quiet farming community, had become the epicenter of a mystery that stretched beyond time and space. Strange lights continued to dance in the skies, moving in patterns that defied explanation. Animals acted restless, and the forest seemed alive with whispers carried by the cold wind. The goblins' presence was undeniable, yet their intentions remained elusive. One evening, as a fierce snowstorm raged outside, Elmer gathered with a handful of townsfolk inside his home. The fire flickered, casting long shadows as they shared their experiences and fears. Among them was Mary Sutton, who spoke softly of dreams, where the goblins communicated warnings of a coming darkness, something vast and ancient, stirring beneath the earth. They discussed the device, its strange symbols, and how it seemed connected to the creatures in ways they could barely comprehend. Suddenly, the power went out, plunging the room into darkness. A faint glow began to emanate from the device, casting eerie light that danced on the walls. The room filled with a low hum, vibrating with a strange energy that unsettled yet fascinated everyone present. Elmer stepped outside, feeling compelled to follow the light. Outside, the snowstorm had eased, revealing a sky alive with shimmering lights. The triangular formation returned, descending slowly toward the clearing near the Sutton farm. The goblins appeared, surrounding the area with glowing eyes and silent presence. Elmer held the device high, its light merging with the celestial display above. In that moment, a deep understanding passed between man and visitor, a silent promise of protection and warning. The battle for Hopkinsville was far from over, but the town now stood united, ready to face whatever mysteries and dangers lay ahead. As the dawn broke over the snowy fields, the first light touched the frozen earth, and the story of the Kentucky Goblins continued an eternal struggle between darkness and hope, mystery and truth.